Greetings of the time. Welcome to the Stanford University Conference on Bahram Beyzaie's Cinema and Theater. My name is Saeed Talajooy and I am Assistant Professor in Persian Literature and Culture at the University of St. Andrews, Scotland. The title of my presentation is Shifting the Borders of Belonging in the Myth of the Nation in Bahram Beyzaie's Bashu, the Little Stranger. In my paper, I argue that Beyzaie's creativity originates in his sublimation of the marginalization process that he suffered in his youth, and that this creativity manifests itself in his epistemic privilege that allows him to notice the destructive obsessions of the culture of the center, gain in-depth knowledge of the origins of these obsessions, and deconstruct them in a process that turns his epistemic privilege into epistemic authority. I also argue that this epistemic privilege gives him a defamiliarizing outsider gaze, which makes him reframe and reformulate established Iranian and non-Iranian dramatic and cinematic forms to produce an emancipatory aesthetics. One of the paths that this reframing and reformulating has taken in Beyzaie's works is to confront the exclusionist narratives of Iranian nationhood, while celebrating the idea of Iran itself as home to different ethnicities. This manifests itself in numerous plays and films, but it is central to Bashu, the Little Stranger, where he deconstructs the narratives that impose a single conception of national identity on people and demonstrates how such narratives alienate people, undermine citizenship, and perpetuate the evils of marginalization. In my writing on Bahram Beyzaie's works, I normally offer a general overview focusing on the ritualistic aspects of the theme or the plays, and then engage with the archetypal motifs that produce several layers of suggestiveness in Beyzaie's works. In the section that I have chosen for this presentation, I focus on how ritualization of action and use of letter writing as a site of identity negotiation create an emancipatory aesthetics in Bashu, the Little Stranger. In the film, the four letter scenes function as loci of negotiation between the exclusionist principles of nationhood, embodied in the absent husband and villagers, and the inclusive idea of togetherness, embodied in Nai and Bashu, who reconfigure the Persian language to turn it into the language of the marginalized and replace the dominant version of reality with their own. Each letter scene in the film is preceded by rituals of purification, initiation, rebirth, fertility, exorcism, and healing. In the film, Nai originally shelters Bashu as a guest, assuming his parents will come to claim him. But later, when she realizes that his parents are probably dead, she decides to adopt him. With the letter scenes functioning as verbal punctuations, the film uses rituals to reflect Nai's growing agency as she engineers the process of adoption at realistic and archetypal levels, along the changes of seasons and the ripening of the crops. In the first letter scene, which follows the rituals of othering and then supporting and caring between Nai and Bashu, Nai informs her husband of Bashu's arrival. Then comes an initiation rite, in which Bashu overcomes his fear and passes through darkness to see how Nai guards the farm at nights, which prepares him for his later involvement in guarding the farm alongside with Nai and then single-handedly. The first river scene also occurs here. After a comic chase with a reluctant Bashu escaping and a trickster Nai capturing him, Nai tries to wash Bashu white. In other words, she attempts and fails to normalize Bashu's physical appearance by washing his otherness away. Though clear in its realistic level, the scene has been arranged to suggest a ritual of purging and recognition, a form of mutually cleansing baptism, which purges Bashu of the apparent vestiges of his trauma and Nai of the assumptions that prevent her from accepting Bashu as he is. This cleansing ritual prepares Bashu for a climactic moment in which, confident of Nai's love, he transforms his minority perspective into epistemic privilege by reading and speaking in the language of the book, and replacing anger with constructive displays of his skills. The scene begins with the fire of the oven and the noise of fighter jets triggering Bashu's traumatic memories. Thus, as he is helping Nai, he suddenly starts acting erratically to warn others of an imagined danger. The village children, who are as always present, ridicule him, and a fight ensues. While Nai is telling them off because of the fight, Bashu first grabs a rock to fight with them, but then picks up a school book and reads in standard Persian. Iran is our country. We are all from the same water and earth. We are the children of Iran. This part is particularly significant because up to this moment the language of the film is either Khuzi, Arabic, or Gilaki, and this is the first time in which standard Persian is spoken in the film. This moment of anagnosis functions like a chronotope in Bakhtin's sense of the term, as it changes the course of action, with a 5-second close-up of Nai gazing at empty space after hearing Bashu's reading in Persian, and a 2-second medium shot of her looking at Bashu's reconciliation with the children. Time becomes artistically visible, and space becomes charged and responsive to the movement of time, plot, and history. Beyzaie thus suggests the emancipating power of a shared language and glorifies Persian as a continuously significant medium which belongs to all Iranians, because all Iranian ethnicities have historically contributed to it. However, the Persian language that evolves in the film transcends the center-obsessed patriarchal limits of Persian chauvinism, as it is transformed by the marginalized Bashu and ostracized Nai to become the vehicle which expands their horizons of identity and changes the meaning of belonging in the village. Thus, the film's idea of egalitarian nationhood makes literacy in a shared language central to nationhood and gives the Persian language a position like the musically charged language of fertility, health, and prosperity rituals in the film, a means of sharing and finding similarities that decrease conflicts. Bashu's use of Persian changes the course of action and events to his advantage. It enables him to communicate with others and decreases his otherness by allowing him to use his skills and experience of another world in his new environment. Thus, with Nai's support, Bashu's quest for belonging triggers in him actions and attitudes which help him gain recognition. These include, among other things, displaying his work ethics, such as guarding the farm at night, arithmetic skills, such as helping Nai with money matters and with the village shopkeeper, literacy, such as writing Nai's letters, and artistic creativity, as in the case of his playing a flute and creating the best scarecrow of the village. This shared language, however, must be first purged of its patriarchal exclusionist heritage, a feat that is achieved in the second, third, and fourth letter scenes in which Nai begins to manipulate and change the letters. This is significant because the letters are the carriers of the name of the father. They are the letters of her husband. What she does is to turn Persian into a language that speaks for the marginalized and supports Bashu. This happens first in the second letter scene, when Nai abruptly grabs the letter from her neighbor's hands, who is reading it, and adds a few supportive sentences in her own Persian to make Bashu happy. Now, therefore, both Nai and Bashu are using Persian for communication and empowerment, which prepares the spectator for the third letter scene, which occurs after a new set of rituals. Let's see what these rituals are. The first of these rituals depicts the necessity of guarding the farm, the homeland, from invading boars. So this time Bashu joins Nai to guard the farm at night. Another displays Bashu's performance of his urban and harbor experience and musical talent, which the village children ridicule. Here, Bashu, whom the children urge to talk in Persian because they want to understand him, speaks of ships, palm trees, changes in weather, and oil workers, echoing the cliché sentences that he has heard in his southern town. But significantly, he also says, "I don't see anyone playing the rubab," and then goes on to imitate the lute-like sound of rubab. Reinforcing the other scenes in which Bashu displays his skills, the scenes suggest how his education, creativity, and musicality help him transcend his minority position and achieve epistemic privilege, an ability to see, do, and explain things in ways that others are incapable of. Although at first he uses these skills to entertain the children, later he uses them to contribute to the life of the village and particularly help Nai. The next scene in the day market foregrounds Bashu's otherness noted by Nai's customers and his alertness and arithmetic skills. The scene of Bashu's decision to leave Nai to chase the ghost of his past, the spirit of his mother, also occurs here, juxtaposed with the metacinematically important cart riding scene that evokes William Wyler's Ben-Hur, the poster of the Japanese samurai film, and the hypnotic flute playing of a local musician, which suggests the local and cosmopolitan aspects of how art and history influence identity formation. Bashu's chasing of his mother's ghost in the market suggests how obsessed with an illusory past or future one may fail to grasp the value of the present. Here Bashu is lost to the past, but being the last time in which he sees his mother's spirit and chases her, the scene implies that the personal or national chasing of the past may be a necessary step for transcending an obsession with the past. Bashu's final immersion in the past and his unexpected return prepared the stage for the second river scene. Now the futility of Bashu's chasing of the past and the intensity of Nai's disappointment at losing him, emphasized by the 8-second high-angle long shot of Nai and her children in the empty market, has made both realize that they crave to be with each other despite all their differences. Besides many other things, the river scene displays Nai's practicality in a moment of crisis. When Bashu falls into the river, the villagers watch in dismay. They are incapable of doing anything. But Nai throws her fishing net and catches Bashu like a fish, a symbol of life. Her panting while repeating, "Come, come," as she is pulling him out of the water, and Bashu's fetal position and soaked appearance in the net all suggest that here Bashu is reborn as Nai's son. This is also clear in that from this point onward, Bashu no longer sees his birth mother. Like all Beyzai's protagonists, Bashu now becomes an agent of fertility, prosperity, family support, creativity, and laughter. This is celebrated in the sequence of fertility dance and music, which registers the similarities of human rituals in a dance in which, due to post-revolutionary red lines, instead of adults, as in The Stranger and the Fog, children dance for the growth of the crop. The ritual, which enriches the film's visual world and soundtrack by Khuzi and Gilaki, fertility music and dance forms, results in a brawl, but ultimately fortifies the children's friendship. This fight also suggests the absurdity of all wars, as the children finally realize that Bashu's ways of saying and doing things, though different from theirs, serve similar purposes and may even be more fun. Indeed, Bashu's Persian words in the scene, "The stems grow better with this sound," echo Nai's Gilaki words about music earlier in the film. Beyzaie thus asserts that music, which was under severe censorship at the time the film was made, is essential to life and human happiness. Having gone through these significant rituals, the film then reflects the change of seasons with images of Bashu, Nai, and her children working in the farm, accompanied by a non-diegetic Turkmen fertility song, which is also a wedding song. This scene then delivers the spectators to the third letter scene, in which Qismat has disapproved of Nai's adoption of Bashu on economic and xenophobic protectionist grounds. Significantly, with the camera's eye-level shot, long shot, reflecting Bashu's child perspective, watching from a distance, Nai interrupts her neighbor's reading of Qismat's verdict against Bashu. The significance of Nai's interventions in letter scenes 2 and 3 become clear if one notes that the Greek concept of nomos, the spirit of the law given by Zeus, is used in Persian in the term namus, the patriarchal code of honor for protecting women through limiting them, which in Persian sounds similar to name, letter, a written account. Nai's refusal to accept Qismat's words, therefore, confronts the authority of her husband, who carries the name of the father. Nai now has the daunting task of opposing her husband, which becomes possible through the ritualistic and archetypal use of wind, rain, sickness, and the Tsar ritual, which is significantly a ritual of exorcism and healing. Nai, therefore, must now discard the burden of patriarchy in a ritual of exorcism, to be reborn as Bashu's mother. If Bashu's rebirth occurs with Nai fishing him out of the river, Nai's happens as a process that estranges her from the ethnocentric and patriarchal mores of the village. Before his rebirth, Bashu regularly sees his mother, but afterwards she only appears to Nai. For instance, when Nai stops the fight between the children, Bashu's mother appears to show her embarrassment at Bashu's behavior. Or when Bashu drifts away after reading the letter in which Qismat has voiced his displeasure at Bashu's presence, Bashu's mother helps Nai find him. In a surrealistic scene in which the elements represent the imaginal world of emotions and ideals, the wind pushes around the letter to tell Nai what has happened, and joins the spirits of Bashu's mother, representing Nai's motherly instinct, to guide her to Bashu's location. Just before Bashu's departure, the film renews the motif of Nai as Simurgh and Bashu as Zal with a series of bird calls that make Bashu hesitate as he assumes that Nai is calling him. Now, however, Nai becomes the all-seeing legendary Morgh Tufan, bird of storm, who finds her child despite the storm. With the heavy rain in the dark forest setting the scene, Nai uses her stick and a mythically charged Persian to return Bashu home. Standing on the entrance of the dilapidated hut, where she finally finds Bashu, Nai transforms into a divine mother, furious at her son's rejection of his home because of a man's interference. Having depicted this ritual of belonging in which motherly punishment becomes the sign of love and the beginning of the law of the mother, Beyzaie offers the climactic scene of Nai's illness and the Tsar ritual, in which Nai performs a dance of death and rebirth as she ritually gives birth to Bashu. The realistic element builds on Bashu's despair. After facing the same closed doors that Nai faced when Bashu was sick, Bashu picks up a metal basin and performs a Tsar ritual of exorcism and healing to cure Nai. But the climax of this ritual turns his moaning voice into the crying of a newborn baby and Nai's feverish dance into an ecstatic sama for purging of her soul, and then which signifies the death of her old self and the birth of her new self. With Nai having ritually given birth to Bashu, the film offers the fourth letter scene, in which Nai as the speaker, Iran, and Bashu as the writer, Beyzaie, reclaim the Persian language as the means for empowering the marginalized. Washing in the same basin Bashu used to perform his Tsar ritual and walking in a circle with a surrealistic background showing the outside world, Nai dictates the letter in a standard Persian. For writing this letter, I did not go to the neighbor. This letter is being written by my son, whose name is Bashu. He helps me with all the work, and the bread that he eats is far less than the work that he does. I will give him that bread from my own loaf. He, like all children, is the child of the sun and the earth, and little by little of every 6 words that he speaks, I understand 3. Nai's emphasis on Bashu being her son and a child of the sun and the earth echoes the lines Bashu recited from the Persian textbook. She is now Iran, reclaiming her homeless child. This scene is also significant as the site of Beyzai's defamiliarization of the war by using a technical feature of Naqali paintings, in which images of different scenes of one or several narratives appear next to each other. While reflecting the journey of the letter from the mailbox to the war front, Beyzaie juxtaposes domestic bliss, work, productivity, love, music, dance, and fertility with a devastating war to suggest how the energy that must be used for pleasure and production is distorted to produce misery and destruction. Thus, as Nai is hanging her laundry and dictating her letter to Bashu, the camera completes a full circle in which the first half captures the house and the farm, and the second the images of the outside world and the war. As in the scene in which the fire triggers Bashu's traumatic memories before his first use of Persian, Beyzaie uses the fire as a motif of transition to the war zone. Now, however, Bashu is already settled in his new identity as an essential part of the family and the nation that it represents. Thus, the fire no longer embodies a threat, but the warmth of a home and bread baking. Realistically, the scene depicts a peaceful household situation, while showing Nai's idea of the outside world and the war. However, the non-realistic use of time, space, and fire grafts them to the ever-present motifs of water and washing to depict Nai as the goddess Anahita, cleansing Bashu of his traumatic memories and the villagers of their ethnocentrism to secure Bashu's integration. This role is suggested also by Nai's name, which is the Gilaki form of Nahid, the post-Islamic name of Anahita. And we know that Anahita was the protectress of family and the goddess of all waters and rivers. Still at another level, the scene engages in a Brechtian reframing like Martha Rosler's photomontage series House Beautiful, Bringing the War Home, in which Rosler affixed images of the Vietnam War onto those of prosperous middle-class American interiors. In Jacques Ranciere's terms, Rosler's reframing produces an awareness of the system of domination that connected American domestic happiness to the violence of imperialist wars, and the feeling of guilty complicity in this system. In Bashu, however, the absence of idle joys financed by wars and the presence of hard work at family level suggests that the purpose is to group ethnocentrism, exclusionism, marginalization, destruction, and war in one camp, and inclusiveness, family, productive work, prosperity, happiness, light, and music in another camp. Thus, instead of criticizing a specific war, Bashu, the little stranger, questions all wars by linking them to the obsessive ethnocentrism and exclusionism that some societies have. In Bashu, such scenes also conjure the sense of space and time in Taziyeh, in which walking around the circular stage may have suggested traveling from one town to another. They also give a new function to goriz, diversion, a Taziyeh technique that enabled practitioners to make rapid transitions between different eras, for instance, to relate the events of Abrahamic religions to the martyrdom of Imam Hussein. As observed in the scenes depicting the mirage of Bashu's family, or the fourth letter scene, the technique which predates the use of psychological time and space in modern literature, and that of flashback and foreshadowing in cinema, is used by Beyzaie to foreground the power of association in human mind and give psychological depth to his characters. Beyzaie also invests on such surrealistic scenes to bring the south to the north and reflect on the continuity of Bashu's lost family in the imaginal world of his consciousness, which also becomes Nai's due to her unique power of empathy. This final letter scene is then followed by the manifestations of Bashu's epistemic privilege. His single-handed guarding of the farm at night, his hard work alongside with Nai at the farm, his musical skills, and his creative use of objects to make a unique scarecrow, which prepares the spectator for the moment of encounter with the patriarch. In the penultimate scene, Bashu's playing of the pipe is juxtaposed with the images of the scarecrow to suggest a magical act of conjuring, which is followed by Qismat's arrival. Then a medium shot depicts Qismat as the shadow of the scarecrow, which in turn is made to represent patriarchy, as in other films in Beyzaie. Then, when Bashu tells the village children that Nai has gone to register him to go to school, the viewer is intrigued by their sarcastic response, which confirms that the man who talked with Bashu is Qismat. This prepares the spectator for the last scene, in which, with the camera placed in Qismat's right side, registering the absence of his right hand, and Bashu's stick ready for a fight to support Nai, a new conception of authority, guarding, and belonging is offered. The realistic level is of course much kinder to Qismat, and his lost hand, gentle face, and kind words make a statement against the war and the distortion of masculinity in patriarchy, as suggested in the conversation about the flute that Qismat can no longer play because he has lost one hand, and Nai's concerns about the farm. The loss has decreased his power, Qismat's power, to make the land fertile by hard work and music. It also suggests a point of shared suffering, enabling Bashu and Qismat to sympathize with and embrace one another. As Nai also suggests, with Bashu's family and Qismat's hands lost, each can give to the other what he is missing, so that they can both serve the family and the land. Symbolically, however, the image reminds the spectator that, with the king gone, Iranian authoritarian patriarchy and toxic masculinity has lost a hand, and is only one step away from being subdued by the younger generation and women. The immediate task, however, is to protect the homeland. Beyzaie's film, therefore, closes with a new family headed by Nai, shooing away the bores and the birds, and the soundtrack playing a hybrid piece of music to confirm the new borders of belonging. Thank you very much for listening to this presentation. I hope that you read the actual paper and come to me with your questions. Thank you very much.